Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here. And I just want to start off by saying I really, truly appreciate all of you coming here and spending the day with us. I think that together, we're going to have a great day full of great talks. Before I get into my talk, I just want to ask you a quick question, if I may. Have you started to form a first impression about me? Probably you have, right? I mean, we all do it, and we do it fairly quickly. So we know that first impressions are important. We don't always know exactly how to do it. Right now, I'm hoping that I'm making a good first impression. But many people ask, how? What's the magic? What's the formula? What's the framework? We don't always know. And so, myself as a communication coach and expert, I've researched this and I've taken it to heart to figure this out because I don't always make a good first impression either. It's a very interesting topic. So today I want to share with you my research notes on that subject. But before I do, I'd like to share just a couple quick stories. The first one is a story many years ago, but I never forgot it. I showed up to a business meeting, and I was 15 minutes late. Not on purpose, of course. And the individual wasn't there. I thought, okay, she's late too, no problem, it's all good. And I waited for 15 minutes, and I sent emails, and she didn't come. I found out later that she'd actually arrived and left. And she was not happy that I was not punctual. Now, to be honest with you, at that moment, I thought to myself, isn't that a little bit extreme? Isn't she a little bit of a jerk? But that's because I was thinking about it from my point of view and my relaxed attitude about time. And I wasn't thinking about it from her point of view. And that was one of my mistakes. I'll tell you another quick story. A number of years ago, I got a call from CRA, Canada Revenue Agency. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with my taxes or what's going on? But actually, no. They wanted to hire me to work with one of their senior auditors. See, the senior auditor, he was very educated. He spoke 3 languages. He, had great technique. He was a great auditor, and people didn't like him. And so, why? What was going on? What was happening was he would show up to these auditing events, and he didn't want to make eye contact, didn't want to smile and make handshakes, certainly didn't want to have small talk. He was all business. Well, the other people that were showing up felt, oh my gosh, he's cold, he's mean, he's judging us already. The feeling was they were guilty before innocence, especially when it came to their taxes. And they felt this is not fair, so they were going to a superior, they were complaining, we want a new auditor, this guy's not going to treat us fairly. And so I worked with this gentleman for a few months. We made some progress for sure. The interesting thing was, if you think about it, from a certain point of view, from his point of view, he wasn't exactly incorrect. I mean, let's face it, he wasn't being paid to make friends. He was being paid to do a very high-level job for a very high-level organization. So from a certain point of view, he was correct. What he was missing was that we humans like to connect. We like to feel comfortable. We like to feel safe and secure, and we want to feel fair. And that's the part he was missing, and we worked with him to help him out a little bit with that. So first impressions definitely are something that last a long time. And my subject today is the long life of first impressions. So the first thing I want to talk about that we can all learn about how to maybe improve our first impressions is something we call the primacy effect. The primacy effect states that the first bit of information I receive about you, doesn't matter if I hear it or I read it or it's my own perception, is the strongest, has the most influence, and is the easiest to remember. Okay? So let's say I tell you, hey, I've got a great friend, his name's Paul, he's full of life, he's so funny, you're gonna love him, he's a gas. Guess what happens when you meet my friend Paul? Even if he's stoic and not really joking, you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's a good setup, I'm waiting for it. And if he does tell a joke, maybe in all honesty it's a 6 out of 10 on the laughter scale, but we're gonna give it the credibility of an 8, right? Because we're expecting that. And if you believe in my credibility and he's funny, you're going to think that's exactly who he is, an 8 out of 10 when it's really 6. And the funny thing is, it doesn't stop there. If you meet Paul again 6 months later, 6 years later, you still think, oh yeah, he's a really funny guy, he's great, he's amazing. Because of the primacy effect, because I primed you to believe that he's really funny. This also works the other way. If you show up, for example, and you're late, then someone thinks, okay, you're late. Yeah, I apologize, I'm very sorry, traffic. Okay, no problem, let's get down to business. Absolutely, we've all been there. And then let's say the next few times, you're absolutely on time. 5 times, 8 times, 10 times. But the 11th time, you're late again. Guess what they think? Oh yeah, that's just him, he's always late. And again, 2 years later, same thing. Oh yeah, he's got a problem with time management. It follows you around. It truly is a long life And that's why we have to take so much care to protect it and to make sure it's a good job. Now, connected with this is something we call the halo and horns effect. It's a cognitive bias we have. I just need a little bit of information about you before I extrapolate and think that there's a bunch of other things going on. So I meet you for the first time, you're punctual, you've got a good strong handshake, good smile. I think to myself, man, this guy's smart. This guy's professional. This is going to be a joy working with this guy. Where'd that information come from? And the opposite is true. Now that was the halo, here's the horns effect. Let's say that normally you're a very punctual person, you're a positive person, but one day it's a bad day, right? You woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you stubbed your toe, you burned your toast, you fought with traffic, you had trouble parking, whatever it might be, and you show up, and for whatever reason you decided to just kind of be real about it, maybe to be honest about it, because hey, that's life. So now I meet you, and you're a little bit down mood, and you're a little bit late. I think to myself, okay, maybe they don't care a lot about business. Maybe they are pessimistic in general. Maybe they're going to be arguing with me at the boardroom all the time. So I extrapolate. So this is the challenge we're facing when we're trying to make a good first impression. We all hear it. Oh yes, put your best foot forward. You only have one chance to make a great first impression. We know that, but exactly how? We have to look at these types of formulas to figure this out. The next one I want to introduce you to is something I call the 3 power concepts. Appreciate, connect, and positive. What you can do verbally or otherwise is you can show appreciation. Now it has to be genuine, it can't be fake. But you can show appreciation in your first meeting. Why? Because we want to try to build rapport as quickly as possible in our first meeting. So you may say things like, I appreciate you coming across town to meet me. I appreciate you taking time out of your lunch to meet me. I appreciate you coming today to see us speak. And you don't have to use the word appreciation. You could say something like, thank you for your help. So as long as it's genuine and sincere, they get that good feeling. Now the next one is connect. We want to connect as quickly as possible so that we're not me and you or me and them, but we are we. We are us. So I want to try to connect on a subgroup culture of some kind. I might say something like, we Canadians sure love our hockey, don't we? And I might say something like, well, we coffee lovers have to have our coffee before we start the morning meeting. Whatever it might be. Anyway, I want to try to connect some way so that we're on the same level. Because why? Because we like people that are like ourselves. We connect with them. We feel that they're like me, therefore we think the same, therefore they're cool. So that's our goal, is to try to become the same tribe and have that familiarity. And that's going to help build rapport. Now the third aspect is positive. Be positive. Sounds like fairly good logic. Not everybody is. Again, we go back to the example of someone saying, I'm just going to be real, I'm just going to be myself. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But the first impression is something you should really try your best to be positive with. To kind of hide those inner feelings if you're not having the greatest day. To not, if you fought traffic, someone says, did you have any trouble finding the place? No, I didn't. It's all good. At least for the first impression. Why? Because if you make a positive first impression this time, a few times down the road, you can absolutely screw up, no problem, okay? Because they believe you're a good person, you're on time, so you can actually be yourself a little bit later on down the road. No problem, no problem. But manage your first impression wisely. The next thing. You may have heard about this, especially if you're in any type of communications or training world, this so-called 7-38-55 rule. And I put it in quotations because it's actually not a rule at all. It's a misnomer, it's a myth. The general idea is that 7% of our communication is verbal, coming through the words, 38% is your voice tone, and 55% is body language. And this myth spread out, why? Because Dr. Albert Moravian, in 1967, did a couple studies at UCLA, and he had very specific agenda for these studies. He was measuring how attitudes and feelings are conveyed. Very small focus. And it was 20 people, they were college students, they were all female, they were looking at one word at a time, and he combined 2 studies into one to come up with this formula. Okay? So I'm not blaming him because he never intended it to be for a mass idea, but what we have done, because I got into popular culture, we have all taken this formula and just said, well, that means all communication is 7-38-55. And so we have to be careful about that because that's not true. But we like formulas, don't we? I mean, how many times have you adjusted the Pareto principle to your life, the 80-20 rule? So when we get these formulas, they're easy to remember. We understand that everyone wants to use them. So what we can take from this, though, and what I've taken from this through my research, is not to really focus on the numbers, because they'll change depending on the circumstances, but to look at there are 3 modes of communication, what I call the 3 V's. Now that's something we can sink our teeth into. Verbal, vocal, visual. Easy to remember. Verbal communication is my words, my grammar, syntax, slang. Vocal communication is my paralanguage. It's the rhythm, speed, volume, intonation, pacing, basically how I'm saying things, my delivery method. And visual communication, yes, it's body language. But it's not just body language. It's not just facial gestures. It's everything from micro-expressions to clothing, makeup, jewelry, whatever they see. What kind of smartphone you have, what kind of computer you have, your car if it's visible. If you're inviting someone to your office, how is your office set up? Do you have a messy desk or a clean desk? Do you have a great wall of china of textbooks that show your authority or create a barrier or not? Do you have certificates on the back wall showing you're an expert of your industry or not? Is my chair high and yours is low? That's an old trick. So these are different ways that we're giving this message so we can see the power of this. So what can we do with this 3 V's of communication? What we can do is we can say, okay, I kind of get how this works. I want to plan as best as I can my first impression. So I want you to reverse engineer it. So you've got the important meeting, the date, the presentation, interview, whatever it might be, and you ask yourself ahead of time, how would I like to be for my first impression? Well, for example, I want to be confident. I want to be trustworthy. I want to be positive, for example. So we'll just take one of those, confidence. It's a popular topic. So let's look at the 3 V's. Verbally. So a confident person, probably they're going to say things like, I am, I will, yes, we can. And they're probably not going to say things like, well, I'm not sure, maybe, let me get back to you, sort of. And vocally, they're probably going to say things like, very strong, medium volume, medium speed. They're probably going to not interrupt their sentences with kind of trailing off. They're probably not going to do that. They're going to speak with authority. Makes sense. Visually, what do we imagine a confident speaker is like? Probably good posture, good eye contact, good flowing symmetrical gestures from the midpoint that are soothing and relaxing. They're probably not going to be lack of eye contact and fidgeting a lot, right? And maybe kind of an off balance. You know, people get nervous and they start dancing on stage. You ever seen this? It happens. It's a nervous gesture. So that's not what we expect. So we can plan this, the 3 V's, to reverse engineer our situation we want to present. And that's what we can do. It's a fairly easy thing to do. Now, if we synchronize it, and here's the key, if we synchronize it so it's congruent, we get our 4th V, the vibe. The vibe is that je ne sais quoi. It's what we feel when we just meet someone. You're like, yeah, you met that guy. I really like that guy. Someone says, why? What did he say? What did he do? You're like, I don't know. I just like him. Got a good feeling. We do some good business together. Right? You meet someone else, you're like, I don't like that guy. Like, danger, danger. I don't trust that guy. Someone says, why? What did he say? What did he do? You go, I don't know. Just don't like him. It's my gut intuition. So we all get this vibe from people, which makes our snap first impressions. That's definitely real. So what we want to do is we want to synchronize those 3 V's to have a solid, clear first impression. That's what we want to do. Now, the vibe is something that we can play with a little bit. Sometimes we can intentionally send a certain vibe. That's fine. But I want you to remember 2 key defaults of all this stuff. And the one is that the nonverbal communication trumps verbal communication every time. Every time. So the last 2 V's, the vocal and visual communication, trump verbal every single time. So if we send a mixed message, we can do it accidentally or on purpose. For example, on purpose, I say to my friend, shut up, shut up. Is he mad at me? Of course not. But why? My words were so aggressive, so rude. Because he knows from my nonverbal communication, I'm joking. I have soft nonverbal communication, I'm smiling, all that stuff. So that's an intentional one. But what if it happens by accident? You know, let's say a salesperson's trying to sell you a great product or service and they're telling you how wonderful it is, the words are great, but once again, there's a bit of disconnect. Their body language is a bit shaky, they're doing some nervous gestures, maybe they're not making eye contact, who knows what, and you're getting that kind of, that message going, something's wrong here. Because why? We always trust the nonverbal every time over the verbal. That's one default you have to remember. And the second default you have to remember, we default to the negative. We are cynical creatures. It's a survival mechanism left over from the days of evolution where we thought better to be safe than sorry. Run now, figure out later if that was a saber-toothed tiger or not. So when we get a mixed message and something goes off and the danger happens, we don't think, oh, well, I'm just going to trust them automatically. No, it's the opposite. We get cynical. We get suspicious. And then they truly are guilty until proven innocent. Now they have to win our trust. Okay, this is something we have to be careful of. And this is probably what happened with our CRA gentleman, is that even though probably verbally he was saying all the right things, but there was a mixed message and people felt, you know, this is not good. Okay? So I think that the research shows that we do have some power over the first impressions. It's not always easy. We all struggle with it. But I think that if we use some of these tips and techniques and we try our best to put our best foot forward, I think that we can affect a decent first impression. And then we can be ourselves afterwards. So I hope today that I've taught you a few things that you can try today at this event, or you can try going forward, and that you have a great first impression, because as you know, it has a long life. Thank you very much for your attention.